Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys tips on how to solve the Megaminx in under 1 minute. So getting Sub-1 on Megaminx requires, well, there are a few prerequisites. One is you should know how to solve the Megaminx, and if you don't, definitely check out this tutorial where I go through in-depth method on how to solve the Megaminx, and using that method you should be able to drop to around 2 minutes, 1.5 minutes, around there, just by working on recognizing things and learning how pieces move across this huge puzzle, right? And also learning that the puzzle is actually not that huge, it's just a 3x3 but very inflated. So yes, that is one of the prerequisites, and I have recently released a video where I show you guys me solving the Megaminx in under a minute. So check that out here. So maybe after you watch this video, so that you can get a good idea of how I implement the tips I'll be giving you in this video there. So let's get right into this. So this video can be divided into two main parts. One being hardware and the second being your own skill. And by skill, I just mean everyone has like the potential to be great. But what I mean is the things you can work on to get Sub-1 faster. And obviously the things you can work on are much more important than the hardware, but hardware is still a pretty crucial part. So I'll leave you guys some options for good Megaminxes down in the description. This is the YJMGC magnetic Megaminx, which unfortunately has been discontinued on QiYi, so yeah, it won't be available there, but I will leave a lot of links for good Megaminxes in the description, so do check them out. And basically size is one of the main factors when it comes to Megaminxes, because some people have a preference for larger ones, some people have a preference for smaller ones. So yeah, there's a lot of good options in general, and that is for size. Now let's move on to understanding the Megaminx itself. As we know, there's the number of layers on the Megaminx is basically, it's good to visualize it as three main parts. The first two layers, so say I'm doing my star on white, the first two layers, the second two layers, which is this band, and the last layer. So that's basically what you should visualize it as, and that means there are so many more degrees of freedom within the Megaminx itself, which makes insertions during your F12 and S12 stages very free. And let me demonstrate what I mean by that. Okay, so first we have a simple insertion, say we're doing F12 and we have white, purple, yellow and purple, yellow. Instead of setting this up weirdly, you need to try to set it up in the most efficient way possible by using the fact that there's so many unsolved layers on the Megaminx. So in this case, we have purple, yellow here and white, purple, yellow here. We could do something like this. And now it's easily set up like that. But this is not the only thing. This is a very simple part of it. The part where the complications arise is insertions like this. Say you have the white red green pair and you've solved it here, but this belongs all the way here, right? So normally what you would do is move this here, move it around and insert it, right? But there's a better way to do this, and it's quite fancy. You can do this on the Megaminx. It's R2 prime. So that gets the cross piece here. U2 prime, that solves this, and R2. And that solves the whole pair. It's just 3 moves. So that's the really cool part about this. And yes, you should start using these insertions into the back a lot more, even with the left hand. And a lot of people usually don't realize this fast enough, but those insertions are very important, especially as you're getting faster, because you don't have enough time to keep turning the cube, and it's much better to be efficient. So again, this is another case where you have white, red, blue, and it has to go all the way here. Like that. So yes, that's another insertion trick which is very, very helpful and helped me a lot, especially during the F12 and even the S12 stages. You will see that there's a lot of cases where you can set up pairs in much more efficient ways and insert them in better ways. So that's one thing you need to focus on. So moving on, there's you need to have a flexibility with how you solve your F12 and even the S12 for that matter. You shouldn't always have to solve a cross or a star in this case and then go for each F12 pair. Sometimes the scramble itself will have pairs already built or which can be preserved easily. So sometimes you might want to just solve a certain section of it and then move to the star pieces here. And that's basically FreeFOP, which you may have heard of before. It's just CFOP but with more freedom during F12. And that again applies to S12. Everything I say for F12 can pretty much be directly corresponded with an S12. So yeah, that's one major thing that you need to keep in mind, is that it's very easy sometimes to preserve pairs like that, and it's very easy to solve cross pieces with those pairs alongside each other and then move on to the next ones, instead of always solving a white cross and then solving the corners. So yeah, moving on. We have the last layer. So all the tips for the lower layers are pretty, things you have to work on by yourself, and obviously that applies for every single tip. But the last layer, I think one major factor that people really look over is the fact that the faster you turn and the faster you recognize things on the last layer, the better it is for you. And that's simply because there's so many cases on the Megaminx for last layer, and having speed while executing them is very important, because quite frankly it's it's such a big puzzle and you've spent a lot of time on these, this whole part. So solving your last layer quickly is very essential, and you should consciously make the effort to increase your speed for recognition and execution of your last layer. So that would also involve, you can consider learning algorithms for simple OLLs such as say the Sun, it's directly here, and things like this, cases like this where it's just short triggers which can solve the whole thing. So it works and it's good, it's useful to learn algorithms for these simple cases as well as for PLL. Like a lot of people like to learn PLL. I personally don't know any PLL. I still use I still solve EPLL and then CPLL. But yeah, the point is if you learn algorithms for these things, it's much better. And yes, so I definitely recommend you to try to improve your last layer. Now for the final tip, you should, this is a very, very commonly looked over tip, and it is to consciously increase your turning speed. Now, I don't often recommend people to turn lightning fast on cubes, normally because you don't have to get good times. But for the Megaminx, just because of the fact that there's so much to do on it, I mean, it is not a lot, it's not complicated or anything, but the fact that there's so much to do, it does, in my opinion, rely on the fact that if you turn faster and recognize better, and also work on those insertions which I spoke about before, where you insert into the back, or you have a lot of various things you can work on. So consciously increasing your turning speed is very important, and one thing that helps with that is key finger tricks. So finger tricks such as having an F like this, pinching with your index finger and thumb down, or an F prime with your thumb up. So it's finger tricks like this that make just you're turning in general faster. I'm just showing you a last layer this thing here, but yeah, my point being that's very important. And the fact that on the Megaminx U2 is not equivalent to U2 prime, which means you need to be able to do U2 prime with your left index and middle, as well as U2 with your right index and middle. So yeah, that's the key finger tricks to focus on. And I think that brings us to the conclusion of this video, which is, I know maybe there wasn't too much content in this video, but definitely these are the only things I've focused on pretty much, and they have got me to Sub-1. So there's nothing to stop you from getting to Sub-1. And yes, just a quick review. Focus on understanding how the various degrees of freedom on the Megaminx work, which will help with your insertions and various other parts of your solve. And make sure you have a good size, you have a good size for the Megaminx and you're comfortable with it. Allow yourself to solve the F2L and S2L, whatever you get, solve it with freedom and not, under the restraint that you always have to solve the star or the cross pieces first. Work on your key finger tricks such as the F primes and Fs which I spoke about, the U2s, the U2 primes, blah blah blah. Work on your last layer recognition and execution, very important to have this down. And it takes time, but definitely if you grind, you will get there very fast. Again, consider learning algorithms for simple OLLs and PLLs, it does help. And yeah, finally, consciously increase your turning speed. That is the best tip I can give you. That is the tip that has taken me beyond Sub-1. And I realized after looking at some of my solves that I actually turned really slow, even though I know the case, and even though I've looked ahead to the next case, my turning is not as fast because I'm not used to holding such a weird looking puzzle. But with some practice, even this weird looking puzzle is actually really simple. So yes, with that I would like to end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to share this and do like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And I will see you in the next one. Peace. Also, a friendly reminder, if you haven't watched my last video where I actually do solve the Megaminx under a minute, go check it out here.